So I would ask that you table that item to a later meeting. We'll be starting with item 3. So is there anyone that has questions about where we're at in the agenda? Item 3 is an item that we started looking at back in February. This is called Extended School Day. We looked at some of the pros and cons of different types of schedules. Some of them are described as a 4-day week schedule. Some are described as a 5-day week compressed calendar. Both of those variations on different schedules were presented looking at the idea of cost savings. One of the primary reasons for looking at that was due to what was being described as possible budget reductions that we might be facing for the coming year. We made presentations to the board at that time, and so promised the board that we provide some opportunity for the board to be able to talk about that and discuss that at this meeting, as well as to hear comments from the public, from staff. I think in February when we presented that, I stated I'd meet with each of the staffs. I did present it to faculty meeting for both elementary and secondary. And I think that probably the building principals have some data they've collected in terms of staff feelings about it, and then also I have some thoughts that I'll share about it at some point. So at this point, I would open it up to the board. Questions or comments that you would like to make about that?
Anyone?
I'd like to hear what the principals have to say.
Any board members? Anything?
Of the people I've talked to, I've had more people in favor of 5 days, lengthening the day and shortening the school term, of the people I've talked to.
Anyone else?
I want to hear what everybody else thinks.
Where would you like to start?
If you want to start, Mr. Lewis, that'd be great.
I really haven't collected any data from the staff. We have talked about this issue at some of our faculty meetings. We've looked at what it would mean academically to go 4 days and then have 3 days off for the students. We've also talked quite a bit about the compressed school year, where we would start later, go 5 days a week, longer school days, and then get out earlier in May. But like I said, I have not really collected any data on that. There are several here that you might want to ask.
Who would like to speak first?
If you close it down for like a Friday or a Monday or whatever, what do you mean by no building access? Does that mean we can't get in and do a little extra work here and there, or?
Well, that's not been set or defined at this point, but the whole idea of having something like that is you have cost savings by having the building closed, so the more the building is open, the less the cost savings is. That would depend on how stringently we wanted to enforce, how hard we wanted to work to try to get those savings that idea was put in place to do. So
I know the research that I read, the material that I was given and studied was, if you don't lock it down, and I mean lock it down, you're wasting a lot of your time and energy, because you're going to gain maybe a third of what you think you're going to. So if you don't go in there and say, nobody in the building, and I mean nobody, it's kind of like you've wasted all the effort you put into it to save, what, $60,000 roughly, maybe we could, at this point. So you're looking at maybe, nothing, it's not a new thing, but each area is different. I talked to someone who lived in Wyoming, and they go to this, and it's due because they travel so far to get to school. Their closest grocery store, Walmart, is 95 miles away. So they completely lock their building down, and it's completely shut. But every instance in every school of everything I've read is different. And what applies to who's doing it now may not apply here at us in St. John. It's the first year, I think, and maybe two, until you try it, you may not like it. I don't know. You may love it. But I think to take advantage of the full cost savings that we are trying to achieve or would like to achieve, I think you're going to just have to totally stay out of the buildings altogether.
I think North Barber's superintendent said that if you come after the heat is turned down or the air is turned down, then you just have to, if you need into your classroom, you just have to compensate. If it's cold, you're gonna have to wear your coat. And I think that's how they dealt with, because teachers are gonna need they're gonna need access, at least I think so. So you just have to wear your coat.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the cost savings in transportation, food service, paras, more so than it is utilities?
It's divided among all those.
I understand, but the majority of it is what you're saving in
The
compensation. It's not, yeah, you're gonna save some in utilities, but the majority is what you're not going to spend in.
The most I've seen, Clint, was, the articles that I read was in possibly busing and energy, heating and cooling, gas, natural gas and electricity. The savings, the studies that I read was that the hourly food service, yeah, you're losing 1 day, but in the overall picture, the biggest savings that they found was in energy and transportation. Diesel fuel to run buses.
No doubt I would see transportation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were the two biggest areas that they found where they could save money if they just locked the building down and didn't let no buses go out. That's where they saved their most money.
What is the cost difference between the 4-day work versus the 5, compressed? Is there a big difference, or are they comparable?
They're all estimates. I mean,
Yeah.
even when you talk to districts who are currently doing it, all they can do is give the best estimates. Part of it's because it is spread out over so many different parts of the operation, it's hard to get a number, but just reading the research, they'll say 2 to 4% of your budget is what they say. And once again, that's how stringently do you close things down, stop things. You can get closer to the 4%. If not, it tends toward the 2%, or it could be lower, I suppose. Keep things shut up.
If you did the 5-day compressed, when would we start? When would we end? And sports on both sides of, the starting and the end date, how would those be dealt with?
Those would all be determined on how long you're going to extend the day, how many days you're trying to squeeze out. And some of you may or may not have been here when I made the presentation in February. One of the key issues in this, the board had some interest in hearing about this from something we'd heard at a regional meeting back in October, I think, and so we're going to look at this again. One of the things I think the board has to look at is the impact on the educational process. That to me is the most critical thing. We started having these discussions primarily because at the time that we entertained the idea of the discussions, they were talking about the state education facing budget cuts of anywhere from 5 to 10%. In the intervening time, that jumped as high as 18%, which I think was people just running scared. But at this point, when I get to the next agenda item, I'll share a little bit more about this, but even the 5% is looking like a pretty dire projection at this point by comparison to what we're actually going to be facing. We still are going to have to make some reductions in some places, but nothing like they were projecting. So, and regardless of what that amount is, I think the thing we have to look at is, are the things we're discussing going to significantly impact the education process? And every time you take a day out of the calendar, that's a contact time with that kid. And I'm starting to get into the little presentation I was going to make from myself, superintendent. So I'm going to stop at that point and let the principals finish. But, did you have anything else, Mr. Wilson?
Say that again?
Did you have anything else?
No.
Okay. Mr. Burning?
I emailed the staff and I got responses from the building to tell me their opinions based on, 4-day week, a compressed calendar. So I got feedback and I just looked through them, feedback for 4-day week, some in favor of that. I got some in favor of a compressed calendar where we'd add time to the day and get out at, end of April, beginning of May. We had some where we added time to the day and we started after Labor Day and get out at the end of May. So I got various responses, but they all responded and I got them back, and there was no, there was varying ones, but a lot of them, if there's a way for us to save money and it doesn't hurt the education, then that's.
Did they have an opinion between missing 3 days of the week and information retention?
No, retention.
Or they didn't,
The
as
retention
opposed
part,
to having
no.
a longer summer?
Yeah, more of them actually, more of them actually thought a longer summer would be retention more than a 3-day week, or a 3-day weekend. Yeah. More of them thought that having from end of April till the end of August off would be more of a concern than 3-day weekend.
Okay.
I guess I'd like to hear from some of our staff what your feelings are on 5 days versus 4 and length of time. I know you guys have opinions.
My opinion is that these little ones, I don't think I can accomplish in an hour and a half more per day on 4 days. I don't think I can accomplish with them because I think they're going to be tired. And I think I'm going to be tired, and I don't think that's as beneficial as another day. I personally would not like to see a 4-day.
Or the compressed calendar? Because it's still gonna make your day longer.
Right, I guess, I know that one year we didn't start until after Labor Day when we got air conditioning, I think. But we did go through May. But, are there some fewer, and in-services are not going to be, I need to ask, is there a set number of in-services we have to have?
No,
Okay.
there's not. There's not a statutory
And
number.
with SDAC not being able to maybe supply some of those, might those be cut down and have some days like that instead of maybe so many in-service days?
I mean, we can always, calendars and everything that's on here, and I'll kind of show where we're at to this point in the calendar. And those are things you can always look at changing in some way. I mean, the difficulty with, as you start to reduce professional development, is new things that you wanted to implement or things you already have in place that you need to have ongoing support for. I don't know how favorable the staff would receive it if we say, okay, we're not going to do any of those on school days, we're going to do them in the evenings or on Saturdays or something like that. Not saying we have to, but if we're going to be able to do those things, we're not going to do it during a what would normally be a school day, then it would come someplace. So,
Well,
but there's not a set number of them.
can some of that be done before, kids start in September?
And we do some of that now.
But the more you do, then the less you would have.
Part of the idea of spreading it out is, for example, like when we did a couple of years ago, the new reading adoption at the elementary and this past year with math, there are times throughout the day it's kind of nice to be able to stop and be able to get together and say, how's it going, what things do we need to adjust or change, and to try to put all that right at the beginning of the year, it's hard to anticipate what the areas might be for need. So.
But that sounds like something the calendar committee people, teachers, could work out on what they want and when they want it. 'Cause it should be
Yeah,
up to
he's
them.
right, though, it is, it's very helpful when we get a new series. So he is right in that respect, but I guess I don't know if we need quite as many.
Well, and as of lately, there's nothing really that's ongoing in service wise. There's nothing that's ongoing.
Anyone else like to speak?
We'd like to hear it.
Yes. I would like to ask you a question then. If we can find in the budget with the money that we're going to be allowed from the state, and we see that we can make cuts here and there and don't have to go to, if we think the 4-day was our solution, now if it's not the solution, would status just stay like we are? Is it just, I mean, are you set up, are you people telling us we want 4-day? Or are you saying, if we don't have to, let's leave it the way it is?
Speaking for me, I'd leave it as is if possible.
Okay,
If it came down to either a 5-day, this is me personally, a 5-day compressed or a 4-day, I'd rather see a 4-day because that extension of the summer is a long time. Not only for little ones, but for junior high and high school. And there's one other benefit that I see to a 4-day that you don't get in a 5-day, and that is appointments. There's a lot of kids gone multiple times during the week where if they knew this is the day that you need to schedule them, have your tail in school the rest of those days, get it done on that Monday or whatever, I see that being helpful. And staff.
Yeah, and Dr. Kennedy may cover this in his, and then the flip side of that is you get a kid out 2 days because he's sick, he's got a lot more to make up.
True.
You know, and that's gonna be harder on him or her to get things caught up. But if, we're not gonna go to 4-day just because we think we wanna try it, right? Isn't that what I'm hearing? Leave it like it is.
I think it's like 6 of one, half dozen of the other, the 4-day and the 5-day compressed. In the elementary, we just had, the kids had Friday off. Okay, like, today was like crazy. Of course, we had the time change and all that too, but when you have those 3-day weekends, it takes a whole day to get caught up and then get back in the groove on Tuesday, you know? In the elementary anyway, maybe it's not that way in the high school, junior high, high school. And the 5-day compressed, like Carolyn said, they're gonna get tired, we're gonna get tired. Come 2:30 in the afternoon, it seems like we're done. You know, we're shutting off, we're done. So if you add another hour on there, I don't know what it's gonna do to like the kindergarten, first, second graders.
My guys are shot by 2.
Someone had told me, it might have been Eddie, who has a relative in the Ashland district. And that was one of their concerns before they went to the 4-day week, was having the longer school day and how it would affect the little ones. And they said so far, they really haven't seen, you know, there was an adjustment period, but after a while, everybody kind of got used to it, yeah.
That makes sense.
I'll have to double check with her tomorrow, but I think she was the one that told me.
So what do you do with the sports, the games on Friday or the games on Monday if you don't have school? Can you have your games?
In terms of, high school activity
Uh-huh.
association, yeah,
Yeah.
there's no.
There's no regulations that say if you don't have school, you can't have activities.
And then there again, what day would be the best to shut it down? Friday or Monday?
We looked through the calendar and there's actually, wasn't it a couple more on Mondays than what there was on Fridays, which shocked us. If you look at,
I mean, more
not
school
just
activities
athletics, but
after- right,
activities.
Total, yeah,
Including music programs and
Right,
all
everything.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So you're saying number-wise, there's less happening on Friday?
Not by much,
Not by
like a
much.
couple.
Yeah, it was close.
But then again, if you're going to that strict, shut the building down, you don't
That's
have
true.
school.
Yeah, no
By
buses
some
are
kind of
on
ball game
Mondays.
that night,
Yeah,
That's
there
true.
you go.
if you're
Good point.
scheduled for a ball game.
Yeah. And
Very
you're gonna
good
have to-
point.
Federal holidays are usually fall on Mondays too, so you lose that day.
If you
And a
don't
lot of
have, you have an
offices
still a lot
close on
of
Friday,
Mondays,
so you need
mostly
Monday
Mondays.
to make appointments if you're gonna go to a 4-day.
Yeah.
So there's so many pros and cons on both
There are.
sides.
That's why we're here.
But then if you close it down on Fridays and you have all of your holidays on Mondays, it's gonna be several weeks in there where you have 3 days of school instead of your 4.
I guess I would have some concerns, the 5-day, compressed, having 3 months off. We've got some kiddos that will never pick up a book, not do one thing academically for 3 months. And that kind of concerns me that we'll spend the first 9 weeks trying to regain what, I don't know, might be wrong, but
We probably already have that issue with them right now.
We do.
2.5 months.
We do, we do. Next time we see it caught up.
I mean, it wasn't all that long, when I was on the board, that the discussion was going all year long to school. You know, and now here we are talking about cutting it back. I know the newest, and I don't know what position it's called, to our president's board. I heard him speak the other day, and he said basically, that's where I got some of my information was, that he said that he doesn't want to see a 4-day, that he thinks it will hurt education. And he didn't, and I was listening for him to say what programs would be affected if your school didn't. He wants everyone to stay with 5 days and even maybe go a longer time and less time off. He was the superintendent from Chicago, and now he's on the president's board of education of, I don't know what title he's got, but
Secretary of Education.
Secretary of Education.
Arnold Duncan.
Yeah. And he's for school all year.
Well, at this point, I guess, the comments I would share is, as I did from the beginning, back in February when we were doing this presentation, I think, and this is maybe a little bit what you were getting at, Bruce, is if we're being pushed to have to make cuts, if it is a last resort, this is something we can look at. But if we're looking at the educational impact on our kids, we're in about the, 8th year principles of No Child Left Behind. We have about 4 years to go. We take another big jump this year in the percentages that we have to hit. If we were already at the end of the 12 years and we were hitting 100% proficiency with all the kids every year, I would feel comfortable saying, okay, well, let's look where we might be able to scale back. But where we're talking about not have to make as significant reductions as we anticipated, and the fact that we're still facing 4 more years of increasing challenges in terms of meeting proficiency for kids, taking contact days away seems like at this point it might be premature to do that. I think it's an idea that at some point, we may want to come back and revisit this, particularly if we find out in 2 years the economy still hasn't turned around and the amount that they're talking about reducing this continues to get bigger and bigger. I mean, we're going to have to continue to look at how can we have efficiencies in what we're doing, but this seems like a pretty significant thing to do unless we just have to. Because in essence, what it strikes me as is we're kind of, to use perhaps a bad comparison to what's going on with the economy, it's like we're mortgaging, taking out a mortgage on our kids' education to pay for a shortfall that we have. I don't think we can afford to basically sell our kids' education just to do some things with the budget that we may have other ways, and I think we do have other ways to look at doing it.
So as of right now, you don't think that it's even necessary to continue with the 4-day school week discussion?
I would give you a tentative yes to that question because at this point, as I'll get into the next presentation, what's being proposed by the governor and it's going through the legislature in conjunction with the stimulus money that's supposedly coming to us, I think there are things that we can look at doing that will not impact the number of contact days we have, and we can still meet those things. It's still difficult, I'm not going to say it's not. But I would say that before we cut those contact days from kids, that we need to be, I see that as our last resort when we've exhausted other possibilities.
Anyone else before we move on?
Yeah, I think we had it on before you switched. Ready? Try that. Blowing.
Okay, this is not going to be a glitzy presentation, but it is going to show you kind of where we're at number-wise. Our current enrollment for budgeting purposes with the state is 368. Our projected enrollment, this is based upon number of kids out, number of kids in. We have a senior class, Mr. Bergen, that's 32, and we've talked about a kindergarten class coming in that I think is 13. Yeah. So we've got a swing there of almost 20 kids. So that's why that projected enrollment we set at 340. when you do the budget, you're allowed to use one of three numbers. You can use your current year's enrollment on September 20th, your previous year's enrollment, or the 3-year average. Whichever of those three numbers is the biggest is the one that you get to use. Because we had declining enrollment, the 3-year average, at this point is probably always going to be our highest number. And using that, if we have a projected enrollment next year of 340, our 3-year average would be 362. Our current year base budget per pupil is $4,433. In order to finish this fiscal year, they took back $33, which worked out to about $25,666 in this current year. If that was the only thing that we had to deal with next year, that would be wonderful. The money that they currently are proposing to take back is not the thing we have the greatest concern about. It's our declining enrollment. Because each of those students that we have up there, when they get run through the finance formula, we get additional weighting for transportation, for at-risk, for special ed, for many things like that. That current enrollment of 368, when you run it through the finance formula, becomes approximately 750 students in terms of state budget. So you take 750 times 4433, and that's how you find out what your general fund budget is. So when you lose real head count kids, actual walking, talking kids, when they're put back into the finance formula, it's an even more severe drop. So what might be a 20 kid drop in the actual number of kids might be the equivalent of a 40 or 45 or 50 kid drop in terms of funding. So the proposed base budget per pupil that the governor presented in her amended budget for next year is $4,400. The $33 per kid that they took back for this year, that's what they're saying that they would hold it to for next year and then for the following year as well. They are able to do that because of the stimulus package money that is coming from the federal government to the state. They basically are putting money into the education side of it so to hold that reduction or cut to only $33. So, contacted Dale Dennis's office. Dale Dennis is the one in charge of finance, and asked, what does that look like, taking a projected budget reduction based on number of kids, declining enrollment, and the $33. Best ballpark he could give me, looking at how the finance formula works this year, is about $130,000. And he said, give or take 20, 25,000. So we know that our projected insurance increase, we have been told, we haven't seen this yet, but the estimate they've given us is for health insurance of a 5 to 12% increase. So I sort of went down the middle and went with 9%. That's, for the school district, 9% is $16,000. To service the salary schedule, this is just people moving across or down. This is not people jumping columns, because we don't know all those yet. Is approximately $8,000 for people moving steps. So, about $154,000 difference from this year to what we might be looking at next year in terms of dollars. Questions about that?
The 130,
Uh-huh.
now, with, it's, well, I was just taking the 368
Yeah.
that we had before, and basically, when we get our budget money, That's basically doubling that number,
Not quite.
to count as kids.
Not quite. It's